This is a very big area, an incredible, an area that is key to safety and well-being in having an actual physical structure that we can live in, as well as to having the public buildings that we require in order to live that good life. And that's how we see housing and buildings and infrastructure as what is essential. It's not only essential, obviously, for shelter and programs and services, but it's also a treaty right, and it's a treaty responsibility. So next slide, please. So once again, and we say this over and over again, we come from our ancestors. They still live within us. Not only does their blood flow through our veins, but so does their knowledge. And it's up to us to be good stewards of all of this while we're still here. And you know that good stewards is about all of us understanding our role in holding our hands out to each other, despite old beefs and family types of situations and all of those types of things that have torn us apart, what other people call colonialism. But really what it's about is how we can support each other in the best way possible in order for us to live that good life. Next slide, please. So we retain the inherent and sovereign right to housing and infrastructure. The numbered treaties contains the right to housing through what is known as a blanket to cover with provision. The spirit and intent, this was known at the time to represent shelter, or as we know it today, housing. As First Nations people, our home fires were central to our way of life and represented the most important aspect of home. This is in the many teachings of various lodges, such as the TP teachings, directional teachings, hearth, fire teachings, navigation, etc. And you know, that is really what we've tried to pick apart in looking at the issue of housing. Because first of all, we know we're unfunded or underfunded when it comes to housing. That's why we have overcrowding. That's why we have lack of housing for people to come home and move home to when they want to come and help our home nation. Our old people, when they want to come home and spend their golden years here on the reserve with where they grew up, you know, and where they have the ties. We know this. And we've really tried to look at the spirit of what is in the home, which is the home fire, as well as the physical structure of the house, which is the asset, if you will, the teepee. But what is inside is the heart of the asset, and it's the heart of our families, and it's the heart of our community, and it's the heart of our homes. Because as we know, if we think back to when we were kids, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, even our parents, they didn't have a lot. And many times we didn't even know we were poor, right? In the grand scheme of life, we didn't know that we were poor, but we had so much love. And there was a lot of, with that love, those teachings, which is the teepee pole teachings that we were living, even though we didn't know that's what it was called, because that was taken away from us. And so as a council, looking at that social aspect of how important that is, and the fact that the women were the holders of that teepee and the holders of that home fire, and the role of women and the role of the grandmother and the role of how we were in charge of what went on, that heart of that home. And the physical structure was the protection. And that was the role of the male, was that protector, just like the physical structure is. And how all of that, two of those items together, the physical structure and that home fire together, really demonstrate that balance. And it demonstrates the balance of that medicine wheel and that women and men each hold their balance within that. Next slide, please. We have always been builders. One of our sacred roles in camp was known as the pound maker. Pound makers would spend weeks building giant corrals that would extend for kilometers and designed to lead a stampede of buffalo to a central point for slaughter, or to drive them off cliffs known as buffalo jumps, which were also human designed structures. We also build large fishing stations, such as the one located at Kanukama, which is known as now as Regina Beach. Some of our structures centered around our spiritual way of life, such as large effigies, large cairns found in Cypress Hills, giant medicine wheels that we used as navigation points, and bases for buildings such as the hundreds of teepee rings located in the Kenosi Hills. So when we think about infrastructure, when we think about those public buildings that we have now, we were always sophisticated in having structures prior to contact. In those structures were the way that we continued on with our lives. And so it all translates into, even today, what we have, we could translate that into exactly where we came from. Next slide, please. Housing and building an infrastructure was not a new concept to us. In fact, through our building practices, we developed our own forms of science, technologies, engineering, and math. Our forms of STEM were also heavily rooted in our spirituality and cultural way of life. Today, we carry on the use of our own form of STEM through the building of our sacred lodges, where we still utilize those ancient formulas to build the structures. We also have housing departments that handle everything regarding housing, and infrastructure departments that handle everything to do with civil infrastructure. And so we also, in terms of that is what we're discussing tonight, but always remember the heart and the soul are the people, and that is what we use as tools to survive and to thrive within that. Next slide, please. Where we are today. And we have our counselors responsible for housing, buildings, and infrastructure. So Counselor Terry, Brandon, and Ira, could you please come up to the front, please? And then we have for our committee, Perlene, Doreen, Gloria, and Stan. And I see just everybody but one. If you could come up here as well, please. Come on. We need, oh yes, there is lots of room. I need one, Terrence. Thank you. And so in order to introduce ourselves as your committee and as your counselors, I'm going to hand over the microphone to the first person up, who is well known in our housing committee life and a treasure and a pearl to all of us. Miss Pearl.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all you guys and girls and Terry too. Everyone knows me as Miss Pearl. My formal name is Perlene H. Lara. Don't ask me what the H stands for. I never use it. I've been in housing forever, as everybody says. So I know all the ins and outs and what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. So it's been a pleasure being on the housing committee for years. And I've been to mostly just about everybody's house doing inspections with the TROs in the past. We haven't done that for a while, but hopefully we'll get that up and running again when we have concerns with some of the tenants that are not happy with whatever their domicile they're living in. And we can certainly try and upgrade whatever has to be done. But that's in the future, and I'm sure, given the budgets, that we'll be able to accomplish any items that have to be fixed. And to me, it's a pleasure for working for the First Nation that I'm proud of to be a part of. And I hope I don't get anybody upset with who I am or what I say. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank our elder here, Cousin Pearl, for the prayer, and the cooks for bringing us a good meal, and everyone coming together here to talk about our housing. And I hope you have some questions for the crew here. Good to see a little crowd here. I'm a little bit disappointed there ain't more people here, but I guess if you're here, ask the questions you have, and we'll try to answer you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gloria Tim. I'm happy to be a part of the Housing and Infrastructure Committee. I too worked in housing for a number of years, so I'm familiar with some of the things that need to be discussed. Want to thank Ms. Pearl for that prayer, and also the cooks that prepared that awesome meal. I don't have much more to say. Everybody knows me, so I'll pass it on to the chief here.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to thank Ms. Pearl and the golf course staff for the great meal. I'm one of the 3 counselors responsible for housing. I've been a committee member for a few terms prior to being elected. So I'm kind of well aware of some of the issues that we have in housing. It is a challenging department, funding wise, as well as not having enough homes for the people that want to move home. So we're working hard to try and resolve that. The funding is coming along nicely. We have a good housing director, Connie Cowessess, that's very good at doing reports and bringing dollars into the department. So we're looking forward to a better year this year, maybe a few more housing units and a few more renovations than previous years. And thank you all for coming out this evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brandon Polche. Yes, thank you for the prayer. Thank you to the Lost Oak staff for the meal and for all of our membership that showed up in person and online. Yeah, no, my background is in plumbing, so I'm aware of a lot of the issues like Councillor Ira said. It's an ongoing issue with our housing, not only here in a lot of our nations. But it's good to have the committee here. It's good to hear more of our voices from our membership. I want to hear a lot of our concerns and ideas from all of our membership. So I think a lot of us are available. A lot of us are open to your questions and comments, suggestions, the good and the bad. We got a lot of the bad because there's a lot of bad out there in our housing, in our communities and stuff like that. But stuff that I think we can work on and just improve on, make better. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Doreen Gambler. People question me about my last name, but my parents are Albina Sparvey and Donald DeLorme. And I too have been on housing for 3 or 4 years prior to this. And at the beginning, I was scared to go on it because I did not know nothing. But now when people ask me, I can answer their questions.
Oh, Yay! And Stan could not make it tonight, so Stan comes with a wealth of experience as well, and we're very fortunate to have him as one of our committee members also. Before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to give a shout out to Corey and Matthew, who have done an exceptional job in having us set up here for hearing each other properly, right on site here, whether it's here or in Regina, or for those that are online. So thank you, Corey and Matt, and could we give them a round of applause? Oh. And also, of course, we want to give a special, above all, a special thank you to Wob Canoe for coming tonight to help set up our evening. So he was the cable guy. Next slide, please. So the departments responsible for housing, buildings, and infrastructure is the infrastructure department, the housing department, and CRBCL, the needs of the families. Next slide. And at this time, I'm going to ask our interim director, I think that is his title, Ryan, to come to share with us the staff as well as some of the initiatives.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ryan, the interim acting director for infrastructure. The road staff, I have Art Leroy as backhoe operator, John Dennis Leroy as truck driver, and Shane Okamason as grader operator, along with Linus Leroy as the mechanic and equipment operator. The community buildings has Preston Leroy as a fourth-year apprentice carpenter, Billy Jack Redwood as a maintenance man, and Jerry Sparvey handling the mall and the hall maintenance. Next slide, please. CCEC custodians are Justin Delorme, supervisor, Melody Delorme, custodian, Colleen Leroy, custodian, Jeff Leroy, custodian, and Orville Spencer, custodian. And in the water treatment plant, Chris Leroy is a supervisor, Kaylee Dawn is an operator, Lou Leroy runs the refuse truck, and Eric Tim, water delivery truck driver. Next slide, please. Okay, a few department updates. This year, the roads is going to be installing 6 culverts in various locations across the nation. One of them being the intersection of the 605 and the Upper Sub Road. That area has always been flooding in the springtime and has ran over the road many spring. Cowessess has also purchased the gravel screener last year. And right now I'm in the process of finding an experienced team to get that operational. This will allow the band to screen their own aggregates, one of them being gravel. Oh, you skipped me there. One of them being gravel for the roads. In the CCEC this spring, a major duct cleaning was completed at the end of March. Next slide, please. In the community buildings, the buildings that they maintain are the band office, the hall, the mall, Eagle Women Tribunal trailers, and any public areas such as the beach, ball diamonds, etc. As well as building garbage cans for scattered units and also helping housing with minor maintenance. Their duties are usually dictated by requests from the departments that utilize these buildings. One large project that they will be involved in this year will be the construction and completion of a 32 by 34 steel shop that I believe is going to be going to the golf course to house their equipment. The water treatment plant upgrades this year, they're going to put in a new sales line and a pump upgrade. And that's at the lower, right, Ira? At the lower fill station. Next slide, please.
And maybe you want to mention the EV unit or the house or the
I'm
public
working
building.
with Gary on that building. We're going to be meeting on Friday. I'll know some more details then, but I really don't know a whole lot about it right now.
Okay, well, wait, maybe one of our counselors can share about that. As we're just talking about the different infrastructure.
I don't,
Brandon?
no. No, there was a grant that was done from the previous term. They applied for a EV grant, which they were successful for, which includes a shop / garage to park these vehicles in. And I believe the budget was going to allow for a building, 8 vehicles or 10? 10, 9, between 8 and 10. Depending on the prices of the vehicles at the time, I think the prices then till now are changing. I know these electric vehicles are pretty pricey. I believe some of the vehicles are going to be allocated to the peacekeepers, the health departments, and Chief. Chief gets one. Something about a Tesla. What are those big cyber trucks? But no, there was a grant that was approved, and they're in the works. They're picking out their locations, and I believe I don't know who took over that.
Gary and I are meeting on Friday.
Okay, yeah. So Gary's doing some oversight on it, and Melissa, Donnie was looking after this prior to his leave of absence, but yeah, in the future there's gonna be an EV building and the infrastructure to go along with it. Timeline wise, I can't really answer that right now either.
No, I don't know myself yet.
Good evening, everybody. So the building will be constructed behind the mall. Originally, there was a site designated up by the band office, but it was cheaper to put the structure behind the mall as we already have different hookups there. So it will be going behind the mall. We're waiting on some different things from government in regards to the grant. So it will be moving forward. We just don't have an exact timeline yet because we're waiting for that information. As soon as we get that information, we'll update you guys with how fast it'll get put up and how fast we will have our EVs and how that all will go down. Thank you.
The exciting part of that is Cowessess will continue on with our reputation of clean energy. And there will be charging stations also for those of us who have either hybrids or electrical vehicles already that. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there's 4 charging stations going in. That's what I was told, yeah. Next slide. Where are the Connie's? Oh.
Constance, if you would like to come
Yes,
up.
Connie.
That's our very own Ryan, acting director of infrastructure. We have Constance Cowessess, Matt, for housing. 24 people online.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, my name is Constance Cowessess. I'm from the Cowessess First Nation. I'm here to help you better your housing. All right, my housing staff consists of 6 of us. There's myself, the housing director, Kelsey Cowessess, the project manager, Shannon Leroy, the occupancy specialist and administration support, Lisa Ann Sparvier George, administration support, Rodney Delorme, maintenance man, Farron Tanner, construction supervisor for the residential construction and renovation program that was offered through the labor force development. We are currently waiting to hear regarding the high program, as I had requested for 2 more additional staff. One would be a data clerk entry and another tenant relations, as we do have a high portfolio of homes. Next. Oh, and Sandy Delorme, sorry, I'm forgetting the most important one here. Sandy Delorme, she is on leave right now. I'm looking forward to her returning. Hopefully it's soon.
And our statistics, the Cowessess First Nation currently has 242 homes on the nation. This includes 152 band-owned homes, 72 CMHC homes, 4 condemned homes, 1 seniors complex that houses 4 seniors and 10 TLE homes. The homes consist of 4 one-bedroom homes, senior complex, 41 two-bedroom homes, 73 three-bedroom homes, 4 condemned units, 46 four-bedroom homes, 68 five-bedroom homes. TLE bedroom sizes were not included in the list above as I didn't know. Next. Okay, the waiting list. The housing department has a waiting list of 49 applicants, 12 dually families, 22 single families, 13 single persons, and 2 seniors. The department encourages all applicants to reapply after 1 year of handing in their original application or when contacted information or family circumstances change. The allocation process does not go in number sequence, but priority, meaning health and safety as well as overcrowding. Applicants must also be in good standing with both utility companies and have their bills hooked up in their name. If they are currently in arrears with the housing department, they are encouraged to have a payment plan in place and pay consecutively for at least 6 months. Is that it? Oh, yes. Leadership. The Affordable Housing Fund, previously called Co-Investment Fund, prioritize affordable housing that is energy efficient, accessible, socially exclusive, low interest repayment loan. So this is in regards to, I guess I should explain. 50 homes, we're going to try and make application for 50 homes for the community. It'll be available for under a 10-year term, may be renewed after additional 10 years. So right now it's 10 years at a time. Can be affordable for 20 years to fund projects demonstrating financial viability and long-term affordability. A repayable loan of a 10-year term close to prepayment with a fixed interest rate locked in at the first advance. The term will be renewable for another 10 years and the interest rate will reset when renewed. Up to a 50-year amortization, 40-year for repair, for smaller monthly payments and a long-term viability. Up to 95% loan to costs, 85% for repair for residential space, and up to 75% loan to cost for non-residential space. There is up to 75% loan to cost residential for municipalities, provinces, territories, and the private sector.
So just to share, I want to give a lot of credit to Connie and her staff for the amazing work that they have done. They have cleaned up numerous reports. I don't even want to say the amount of reports that they have cleaned up in housing that had us actually eligible for new housing. And not only eligible for new housing, but she said it so casually, but again, let me just reiterate what she said. We are looking at, for the first time ever, not only the potential, but the probability of 50 new homes on Cowessess. 50 new homes. We've never had that before. And we are going to maximize and utilize government programs as much as we can, as well as utilize any sort of own source revenue in order to make this a reality for our children and our families and our seniors and those that are differently abled and would not normally get the opportunities to have homes that are suited for their needs. And this, friends and relatives, is absolutely amazing. And we, as your leadership, just are so excited about this. Any of the councillors want to share anything more than that? Ira, I know Councillor Ira does.
Yeah, it is a very exciting initiative for us to add 50 new homes to our housing stock of 200 and I think we had 232 or something, but to add 50 more homes would be something that we've never seen before. I think our housing waiting list only has 48 members or waiting for homes. So not saying that they'll get to 50 homes, but we can easily take that list down to 0 people wanting to move home. But I think we should, I think it'll take us 3 years. I'm just guessing that the first year will be a planning stage and the other 2 years will be the actual building, and we need to find locations. We need to get the utilities and everything in place. So I think a project team would be put together to manage something of that size. I think we're trying to take advantage of it because the interest rates on that are quite low. They're like less than 5%. I think they're 3 and 4% interest rate. So it makes it very feasible for First Nations to take advantage of this program. Thanks.
Go ahead, Connie.
So the seed funding, this is also a financial assistance to help the community housing providers with the cost of early development activities related to the pre-development cost of building a new affordable housing project or renovating an existing affordable housing project. CMHC's seed funding program provides financial support for individuals or organizations involved in the initial phases of creating an affordable housing project. You can apply for up to 350,000 in interest-free loans and a maximum of 150,000 of non-repayable contributions to assist with early development expenses. These expenses can include things like the formulation of a business plan, creation of a preliminary design, concepts, and conducting environmental site assessments. Thank you.
The other night in our health and wellness, there was a question about people moving home and utilizing our own people. And one of the major stumbling blocks that we do have is that we don't have homes for people to move home to. One of the other aspects that we didn't mention is that we do have additions to reserve land or land that is now reserve status that is adjacent to urban areas as well. And so as we imagine these 50 homes, and that is just the start, we're hoping, because we understand that we have university students, single parents, seniors, that in actuality, what this has given us the opportunity to look at and to dream and to make those dreams a reality, that when we are doing the land use planning, we also have opportunity to look at the lands in Yorkton, the lands in outside of Regina, the lands that are outside Saskatoon, and really look at providing opportunity for our members, especially in the areas where we do have land outside of the reserve as well. So it's not the sky is the limit, but when we talk about those 50, it's also about us planning and being guided by our community members on how many houses will be on our home reserve, as well as potentially in the urban areas, which may include not only in regards to the 50 plus, but as we develop the reputation and we have a better credit risk assessment, we will be eligible for apartment complexes, seniors housing. And that's really what we're looking at as well in these next upcoming few years, is to continue to build on a solid reputation of us being able to say we're going to do it and actually do it. So we're really proud of our team here and look forward to hearing from our membership in guiding us where we're going in terms of not only what we're planning with the 50 houses, but also what our needs for the next 10 years are as well. So that's some pretty darn good news, we feel.
Did we take some questions on what was done before? Because you're going to, where are you going now? Okay, okay, all right. You're just going back to the infrastructure ones here. There's a couple of them here. It says, question for roads. This is coming from Ty up the hill. Why isn't the upper sub roads maintenance more often? We have school buses, water truck, a membership in and out every day. The grader does not come often enough and never gravel on the roads. Also another one on the sub, they would like to think about, or like to, a chance to build a splash pad park for the kids. A park in the the park in lower sub is quite sad looking as well. So those are some of the parents here. And the next one, I'll wait till the next one. I'll let you talk about those two first, because those have to do with the enhancements of the subs. Anybody?
Shane is on a 5-day rotation and he should get on each road throughout Cowessess once a week. So that sub should be hit up every week as far as my understanding.
Splash parks, fixing up the play parks for the subs, both subs. Anything? Any plans? The ones with kids?
I don't have any plans.
We have definitely spoken about the playgrounds and needing, whether it's a splash park or a place for kids to play. And I know that we have been looking at the different funding possibilities, as well as when we do have our 1907 come in terms of the overall beautification and the utilization of all of our services and programs and opportunities for kids, that we're looking at those common areas as well.
Anybody in the house? Bubsy? Gary? Gary Bubsy.
Thank you much. Question I asked at another meeting was regarding the solar panels. It's my understanding that there's solar panels that aren't even hooked up, that wires aren't even, they're not even operating. My question then was, how much are they saving us? So my question is now, are they even working? Because like I said, from what I hear, wires aren't even hooked up. And who's in charge of them? Who maintains them?
That's a question we've been asking. Well, I shouldn't say we've been asking since the beginning, but it appears that that for those solar panels, we've been assured that they are working, but there has never been an assessment, and it's in the works to do an assessment on really how much it's saving. And especially when they're like on the seniors complex. And as of right now, we know that there has not been an assessment done in terms of how much is being saved overall. And we're hoping to have that done, but we have been assured that they are working.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, because like I said, the ones at the school, they say they're not even plugged in there. So, and yeah, and geez, I had another good question for you.
Yeah, you can ask when you think about it. You can come back. There's a.
Just another comment about the solar panels. I was assured at the water treatment plant, we have them there as well. And they are working, because when we got an upgrade there, they had to shut them off when they did the upgrade there. So I know they're working there. And the chief is right. There never has been a, I guess, to find out how much power we're actually saving. They were never meant to run when there's a power outage. They were only meant to assist with the power bill. And we haven't got I guess, a number back from finance as to how much has it dropped our power bills by having them. They were done under a green initiative, so there was very little cost to the First Nation to get them installed and get them ordered and that. And as far as maintaining them, it was Jessica Nixon at one time that had gotten the grant and everything to get them done. And when I questioned her about that, she said they're maintenance free. Just let them operate. So we haven't had any issues with them, thankfully, since they've been put in that I'm aware of. But that would be interesting to find out how much we're actually saving with them. And I guess the selling for that project was we didn't have to put any dollars in. A snow fence that was around them, yeah, just to protect them, I guess. And yeah.
Okay, let me know when you have another question. This next one has to do with the houses and the rentals and the mortgages. There's a couple of them here. And it has to do with non-payment of rents. How are you going to handle that? And how are you monitoring the rents with the rent-to-own models? I don't know anything about that. And Esther Peterson says, how long does approval take from the chief and council for land if you apply for a CMHC mortgage? I'm not so sure about that. And the other ones are for single people eligible for single family homes. And I think we just answered your question, Cashton, on the solar panels, but let me know. Those ones are about rental and CMHC mortgages. How it works.
Connie, do you want to come and answer those questions?
CMHC rents. What are you doing about monitoring them?
Okay, in regards to the first one, the rent to own, that would be considered like a section 10. Usually not, as many communities I've worked in, I haven't seen any. They've tried, but unfortunately it was either because the nation would have to sign off for the MLG, and if they fail to pay their mortgage, then the band becomes responsible. So that's why there's not too many of the Section 10 homes in communities, but it is possible, but it goes back to having a CP for the land, right? Okay, and what was your other question?
For them. Can anybody apply? How long does it take?
Well, anybody can apply through CMHC. All you have to do is go onto their website. If you're inquiring about your own home, then definitely reach out to them. I encourage anybody to reach out to them. They'll walk you through it. They'll tell you all what needs to be done and what you'll have to do with the nation in order to get things moving. Anything else?
I think one of the questions also was non-payment of rent. That was the first one, and that has actually been a question that from the first day we sat together, which will be one day tomorrow, all the way up to today, that we are trying to find a solution that is holds people accountable, but is also not hindering them for the rest of their lives in accessing a safe place to live. And so it's probably one of our biggest challenges in assessing on how to assist people with paying back some of that back rent that's affordable to them. And we have been successful even within these last few months where people have shown good faith, like we had on the slide where they've paid, arrears for 6 months and that they continue to pay arrears. And we consider those ones in good standing as long as, within that, or for that, at least that period of 6 months that they've continuously paid on arrears that have been acceptable to both parties. It's a hard question, and we are working hard on the answer to that.
Anybody else in house? The next question would be the Regina wind turbine. I guess that's the same, eh? With the Regina wind turbine on the same assessment, like you're saying, they have to go undergo that assessment.
the wind turbine and as well as the solar panels, those are two different, those are CVL initiatives.
Okay, okay. I guess they're still asking the question, roughly how long does it take to get that approval from CMHC? Does anybody know? I'm not so sure we would know. Yep.
They can't hear you online.
How long does it take to get approval? Well, that varies. First of all, if they have the money. Secondly, you would get designated a specialist. They would walk you through and however long it takes to get all your documents, getting like I would say at least a minimum a year just to actually physically get started when it comes to the actual build.
And also infrastructure for that house is a totally separate thing on top of that as well. Is that, and we are working, you know, that's in our plan, especially for year 2, is the land use plan, not only for our home nation, but for all of our different areas. And a plan for assisting with infrastructure so that we have a true community and a true community where, people can build where they could raise their families in a safe and healthy environment, as well as our seniors can, like I said, live their golden years in that safe environment as well. And so the housing with CMHC, that's owning the physical structure, but that also is that there's an additional cost to bringing the infrastructure to that area if infrastructure is not there. So there's a lot to be considered within that process.
The other thing is when they're renting from the band and one band member is not, or sorry, one person in that house is not a band member, like they're married. What happens to the person? What if they have to leave the home? One of them has to leave the home.
Well, we're working on updating the housing policy to address items such as matrimonial real property, it's called MRP, as well as the rights of the band member, and trying to balance all of that together, because once again, it's not there's no clear cut answer until it's in policy, and we're going to require our committee members, as well as a task force, as well as to hear from our community and nation exactly what we want together. Connie, do you want to add anything more to that?
Okay, it's a tough one for the nation because some people have only been together a few years, whereas you have other ones, they've been together like 25, 30 years already. And so those are questions for them, from them, and regarding them. Also, somebody's saying that when they're asking for arrears, somehow they're not getting a number. Are you having trouble getting the arrears for them? Anybody from finance, or is it a big deal to get arrears? Someday a homeowner calls in, how much money did they owe?
Okay, so when we talk about the challenges of the past 12 months, that is one of our challenges that we've had, is that we are trying to come up with a solution that provides accountability as best as we can by both the band member or the tenant in this case, as well as administration. And unfortunately, what we're looking at is to the best of our ability, ensuring that those amounts are correct, and that we work really hard with the person inquiring. I should say our staff work really hard with the person inquiring by both housing and finance to ensure that the number is correct on both sides. But I have to say it's been a challenge. If any of our counselors want to address that as well.
Yeah, you're right, Chief. That has been a challenge. We've had discussions in the past few years about universal rent so that everybody pays one set amount. SA would like it that way because then they could set a rate and they could pay the maintenance fee on some of the units. And right now they can't when only half the people or a quarter of the people are paying and the rest aren't. It's just not fair. So SA won't pay for some of those units unless everybody is charge the same amount of rent and all paying. Before I hand the mic back, I just wanted to, I know we're talking about mostly reserve housing here, but we had some discussion at the table today in regards to home ownership in the city of Regina and the program that the urban office has to assist in mortgage, $5,000 for mortgage for any band member that wants to buy a unit. And we had some discussions around the table this morning about upping that to doubling it, I guess, to have at least 10 people per year. I spoke with Jody once and she says the 5 that they normally fund usually gets used up in the year. So we're hoping to increase that number so that more of our urban members can be homeowners. We identify that the rents in Regina are just going crazy now. It's harder and harder to live in the city now just because of the amounts of rent that these landlords are charging. So that's one way I think that the First Nation could help some of our members get into their own units, their own houses, and pay a lot less than what the landlords are charging now.
We have a question back here. Did you?
I don't know who to ask, either Connie or somebody else. How do you apply for RAP or HASI program? That would save the band money because I know they get grants for RAP plus that HASI program. I've been on the list for 5 years, but I never got no answer. My house is well, you see my doors are falling apart.
So regarding the HASI and the RAP, so years ago, it was, you'd be eligible for 16,000 and you per home. So you could use maybe half of it and down the road, you could use the remainder of it. Now, it's not like that. They now combined everything into one program. So you either use it as a HASI or a RAP and you only get one application. And we had already submitted one application for the year. However, if there's a surplus, they'll reach out to the bands and see who wants one. So I'm always make sure I have an extra application ready should there be a surplus. But yeah, that's usually how it goes. As for you being on a list, I'm not aware of a list. Yeah.
When Judy was here,
Yeah.
the other people didn't even send it in on.
Yeah.
After I left the office.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's all considered under the emergency fund. And they combined a lot of programs in one now. They've kind of did away with all these different little programs they used to offer. Now it's just like 3 big pots is what they use. And you could utilize it either way as a HASI or whatever. As emergency repair.
And just further to that, when we talk about our housing is always challenging in every nation, and we acknowledge that. But what we have found as a council, it's that it is actually pretty much, other than finance, our most challenging area because of past record keeping, because of turnover in staff, because of lack of reporting. There were so many challenges operationally. And that's why at the beginning I gave Connie and her team and Sandy and her team before that, the credit, because they are making miracles happen with what they have had in terms of information for reporting, as well as to ensure that we have further opportunity, because there hasn't been a lot of reporting in housing in several years. And that in itself has had us not be eligible for anything from that point on, as well as it has been a challenge for us in housing and finance to find out where the funding for housing has gone, period. And we are actually still in the middle of investigation in finding out exactly where the funds went. And I'm not saying that they were mismanaged or that there was fraud, but what I'm saying is because there wasn't proper operational structures within it, that we're still trying to find exactly what happened at what time and where in order for us to find out how we can move forward. And it's really been a challenge, an incredibly huge challenge for all of us. And we're trying to find, in doing all of that on a move forward basis, to make it as fair and equitable as possible so that we don't hear stories like yours, Myra, where you've been, waiting for how long. That paperwork that you've been thinking probably has been sitting there and you're getting higher on the list. You just heard from Connie. She wasn't aware of it. And that's some of the communication that we're getting, that we're trying to get out to On Reserve here, is for people to not assume that your housing application is in or your request for renos are in, and to call the office and to talk with Connie and her staff and Sandy when she gets back in order to make sure that we are aware of it. It's been incredibly challenging, and that's a situation that we walked into. Any of the other counselors? Counselor Terry?
I think we could do a better job of monitoring our houses without the people coming to us and requesting assistance to fix their houses up, the little nicks and knacks and where it's broken here and there. I know of one house that has a hole by a bathtub that's been there for a number of years now. Went through a couple different renos and it was never adjusted properly. And this is just one instance. I know of 3 or 4 houses where there's elderly people living in there and they're living in conditions where they shouldn't be. And if we're expecting these elders, the Kokums, to come in up to the office or do a request for repairs and stuff, that's not, we're not doing our job. I think we should have a housing tenant that goes and visits the houses at least once a year, I'm saying. Someone from the housing department should be out and for the middle-aged people and the ones that could get by themselves, all right, maybe not quite so often, but look after our elders for God's sakes, check out their houses, go inspect them, see what they need, see how we could help them. We're not broke. There's money out there that we could use. It could always be found. And I think we got to pay attention to the renovations going on and how the contracts are being awarded, the work that's being done on them. Like there's lots of issues here that I was hoping for more people out here to come to address, But elders are number one. We should look after them. They've been here. They're the ones that we should look after. The grandmothers, the grandfathers, the people that are not able to work anymore. That's the ones we should dwell on. Next ones are the single mothers. I guess there's some single dads with children too, but very few. Those are the ones we gotta dwell on. Another big issue that's always a touchy one that I see that's not being addressed is the drug issue and the drug trade going out of houses. We had 3 very brave women ladies come to the meet with the council 2-3 weeks ago, and they're actually crying, they're scared with the issues of drugs around their houses, They're asking for help, begging for help, and it's very hard for us as a council to help them, chief and council to help them. We need the community to help us with this drug problem. When our own people, when our own women, they're warriors, but yet they're scared. That's not right, And as the RCMP can't do nothing, our peacekeepers can't do very little. They could watch. In that sense, we need the community. I'd like to see the community rally behind us and help us say, we're going to do something about this. We're going to get rid of this problem for the sake of our members. One of these, look at what happened on the Chap last week. Somebody was murdered. When's that going to happen out here? When these people get on them drugs, they're unpredictable. They don't even know what they're going to do themselves. But when I see 3 elderly ladies asking for help. And there was no real help yet done. That's where we're not doing enough, and we can't do enough, I think. We need the people, the elders, the grandmothers, the Kokums. You're the ones with the power. You're the ones that could stand up and say, let's do something. You give us guidance. Give us guidance to help us help everyone here. If we're given direction from the people, I'm sure something will be done. I believe when there's drugs being dealt out, pushed out of a house, that's a housing issue. There's one Northern Reserve, I don't even know, it might be Fishing Lake in the last 2 weeks, where the band members rallied together and they went and shut down a drug house, and that was done by the people, not by the chief and council, by the people. That's what I'm getting at. There's another reserve out that way too, that when there's drugs dealing out of a house, they went and shut it down, and they developed a policy where if there was still drugs dealing out of the house, the whole family was evicted, the house was taken away. I'd hate to see that done here, but we could try stop it or call it or slow it down any way we can. That's a big issue for me, protecting our people and looking after our elderly that help people that need help with their housing issues. Sometimes they're not looked at good enough. We got to look after them more. I think that's about all I have to say for now. Thank you.
What question back here?
So just to supplement Councillor Terry, these are the discussions that we have around the council table, and they're very tough discussions to have, because if one community had the answer, we would all be able to address it in that way. The first part of what he was talking about, it's having an effective housing policy and the ability and the will to enforce it, as well as for the community to assist us in enforcing it also. And so that is what we talk about when we say that everybody has a role and responsibility in that healthy and safe community. And we are trying our best to look at every single possibility on the area of the drug trade and drug trafficking and keeping people safe within their homes, so that we don't end up like some of our other communities with incredible tragedies that it'll take generations to recover from.
Question back here, comment or whatever.
Like what Terry said, I still pay for my own paint. Someday I just painted my living room and I paid $200 for them to come and paint, but I bought my own paint. I broke a window. I didn't run to the band. I got Century Glass to come and fix it, and it cost me just about $400 to get my window fixed. It was accidental because cutting the grass, the stone went towards the window, had it facing the wrong way, but I paid for a lot of my own stuff. And we lost moose meat, a whole freezer of moose meat. And we didn't know what was wrong with it. So finally Heather phoned Connie and said, that plug-in's not working. So they come and check it. And here's the good thing, our house didn't burn because that plug-in downstairs was all burned. And Jack said it's an old house, so he checked all the whole works. Like we could have been sleeping and it burned. And talking about security, drug insecurity, and I was living alone till Heather lived there. That one night I woke up, there was a red, and I know whose car it was after I seen it. A Dodge Caravan sitting right in front of my front door. And I really got scared, and I phoned Sherry, and she was in New York then, so I didn't know who to phone. So I phoned JD, and he was just like, I locked the doors. I hid myself in the bathroom because I was afraid he'd break in. And I went and peep, and he was going down the road, but I went and looked for I know who it was. Because that's the only red Dodge Caravan around. I had one, but it wasn't me. But anyways, I ended up buying a security camera It's called Baz. You could see all who comes to your house and stuff like that. Right, and you could log it up to your phone here. And you could see all who comes to your house. But like I buy most of my stuff, I never run to the band. I buy my own paint. I do my own painting. Pay for what's broken. Like, and now I'm single, I have a rough time, but I still do it. I just hired somebody to paint my living room and hallway and I paid them $200. And I bought some more paint. When it's on sale, I go buy it. Even if it's just white, then I get it tinted. Like I try and look after myself. I don't run to the band for help. But I need help now because my doors are falling apart.
Anybody else in house? I got some questions or some comments online. Anybody? Allison?
How many questions? We're getting requested a smoke break.
Okay.
So-
Right after this one. Right after, we're gonna have a.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I was asked a question last weekend and I had no idea the answer. And I was like, well, when I get the time, I'll see what I can do and I'll find out for you. So here's the chance for me to ask this question. It was if the nation has a road ban in the soft months for the roads for heavy trucks. And that got me curious. So now I'll be able to answer that question. Hopefully, I'm not sure. Like a road ban
Ryan?
and what that means.
Understand. My understanding, the only road that will go on ban is the 605. I believe, correct, Jerry?
That goes on in the
The rest
springtime.
are surrendered back to Cowessess.
Yeah, the only road that could go on that they could apply a road ban on Cowessess is 605. That's the main road going right through the reserve. From the bridge here to Broadview, that's a provincial grid. It's a secondary grid. We're supposed to get funding from the province to help maintain it, but we don't. We haven't for years. We haven't forever. I think back in the 70s, I remember the provincial government, the RM was helping send money towards our First Nation to maintain that road, and then they were able to do the restricted weight in the limits in the springtime. The road ban is in the springtime when the roads are
Yeah.
soft. They'll be lifted by now, but yeah, it's a big issue. It's never, and I know what you're getting at. A lot of times when the road ban is on, I'll see heavy traffic going, heavy trucks going through our reserve because they know they can sneak through here without being caught and penalized. It's
Right.
an issue, but I don't know what we could do to stop it.
Yeah.
Unless we put up gates at the entrances again, it's a big issue, but we maintain the roads. We don't get any money to maintain them. Maybe we should. I don't know.
Yeah, there is in the spring, when the road is thawing, you can drive on at certain times, otherwise it wrecks the road. And it applies to the big heavy grain trucks. So it's the agricultural industry that puts them on there. Yeah. And actually how it wrecked our roads was there was the one that was going that way. And he fell off the old grade just about, there was a big heavy truck. That's how that road got wrecked. He had made the other one. Okay, we're going to take a break. Some people are.
Just before we go though, with just answering what Myra was, with that safety issue, just very quickly, and I know that I'm not trying to put it all on policies and bylaws, and this is going to be the end all be all, but we are looking at all the tools that we can have in that at least we'll have a multitude of tools where we can try to provide that safety. So when we're talking about the housing policy, that we're able to have like areas within provisions in there about that have safety and going into yards. There's also looking at, as we look at sovereignty in our own bylaws, is trespassing laws where you could either call the RCMP, and we're working with the RCMP right now where, there's going to be procedures within either the peacekeepers and the RCMP, depending on the time and how long that they could get there, in exactly how it could be responded to, especially for someone who, like yourself, is a widow, and needs to be safe. And so utilizing our policies, our acts, our bylaws, that's going to help us have mainstream as well as receive funding in order to keep our people safe. So that's just part of our tool chest that we're trying to build as a community as well.
Okay, here we go. They're asking questions still about the CMHC.
Terrence,
Yes,
just before we go to questions, we have one more announcement to make, and Councillor Ira is going to be the one to share the news.
good enough.
Just in light of some of comments that Terry was saying about the senior safety in their homes, the housing department, I know for this fiscal year anyway, is committed to renovating 24 of our units on the First Nation to the tune of $15,000 per unit. And if more money becomes available, they'll do more units. But it's under the priority of seniors and safety of seniors, such as handrails, maybe loose tiles or something like that that poses a safety risk. So I was hoping Connie would mention that, but I think we both forgot to.
Okay, two general questions, and one is about the TLE lands. Is TLE land available to put housing on? Can you get CMHC house on the TLE land? Yeah,
So right now, what we're doing is we're embarking on a comprehensive land use plan. And we expect to have that completed in the next year, where that will be addressed. Issues like that will be addressed in TLE lands, as well as additions to reserve lands, as well as on reserve lands here.
good enough. Okay. Okay, yeah, so it has to be on reserve status, because some TLE land is not reserve status. Good enough. We'll pass on that because that's in the works. The other one is seniors lodge. Is there a consideration for a nursing home on the reserve for the elders?
As we say, everything is possible, and we know that right now there is not funding available for what we know is required for our seniors and differently abled people to live semi-independent lives, as well as be as independent as possible. And so, as discussed in our other nation talks, that we will be seeking the guidance of our nation, of our members, in prioritizing that, and we believe it is a high priority, that when we plan for public buildings, and that would be considered a public building, that would be the top of the list.
Good.
Because we know that it is very much needed.
Good enough. Anybody in-house? Then Chief can let you take it over. Where are we going?
We don't know where we're going. We need to be told where we're going. Next slide, please. So once again, and as we said, Councillors Terry, Brandon, and Ira, I think this is out of, we are very much appreciative to these three council members, as well as our other councillors, that take this area of responsibility very, very seriously. And we're so fortunate to have an incredible wealth of experience for our committee. And when we talk about some of those areas such as safety, renovations, changes to policies that are reflective of our people's needs, we're looking at that for the task force and getting those action items prioritized so that we could really work hard at it. I would like to also introduce Angela Desjardins, who is our new Director of Governance, and under her leadership, she will be spearheading a lot of these policy, the acts, the bylaws, and working with the team in all of our different areas. Ange, do you want to come and say hi and introduce yourself?
I was here yesterday.
Hi, I'm Angela. Hi, everybody. So I just was hired Monday. So I just moved here on Sunday. I just retired from 25 years of policing, and I'm very happy to be coming home and feel very blessed to have this opportunity to work for my nation. So I will do you proud, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Parents, do you want to share her family?
Yes, I will. She comes from the David Gaddy family, but the Gaddy family is a big family, and like everybody else, they kind of spread out all across Canada. And when Hubert and I went east to find everybody, we found her relatives out in Thunder Bay, I'm sure of it. And her relatives are Barbara Lalaberty and Flora Holt. It could be the other way, but those were the Gaddy sisters. And the last time they came home, I believe, was during the summer games. They brought them home, especially her son brought them home. I can't remember his name. He was a fireman, but he brought them home because they wanted to see the reserve for the last time. And I drove them to their old homestead, and I drove them to a couple of the other sites on the reserve too. And but the one fellow was a firefighter, and that's about all I remember about the Holt family. And but they're a big family, and like they don't come home anymore, other than this one right here, Angela.
Come home, Ange. Next slide, please. So once again, and I just talked about this, we don't need to beat a dead horse, so to speak, is the task forces. We're looking at the targeted sectors, the community concerns, and prioritizing that, ensuring that it's trauma-informed plans. We heard about safety issues. We heard about not only safety issues in our community as a whole, but also the safety issues within homes when homes aren't kept up and people age and the needs change. So we're really looking at ensuring that we have trauma-informed services as well as the laws and the bylaws as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand this over to first Councillor Brandon's been fairly quiet tonight, which is, I don't know what the heck is going on because he's never quiet. And he could lead this next question on behalf of our team.
I was using my phone. I am quiet, but I'm taking notes of all your concerns. What are the top priorities you think the nation should address in the area of housing?
Anybody in house? What are the top priorities you think the nation should address in the area of housing? That is a big question. Think. Anybody online? Anybody in house? Online? More houses, they said. Hang on. Good question, or good comment.
I just want to say that when they're allocating houses, they should take into consideration the size of the family. Don't give a 3-bedroom house to a single person. You know, give them a 2-bedroom. And the 5-bedroom houses go to families with 7 kids. You know, not a 2 or 3-bedroom with 7 kids. Take into consideration the size of the family. Also have to take into consideration the capability of paying the rent on new housing. I know they get big family allowance when you got 7 kids, but when you have 7 kids, the cost of living is too high for food and clothes. So we have to take everything into consideration when you're allocating houses and do it in a fair manner. Look at the houses they're coming from and look at the houses that Look at the houses that they're coming from. Look at the houses that they need in the size, the location. Be fair about allocating houses. And for heaven's sakes, I don't care who doesn't like me, but I don't think councillors should get houses while they're in term. I was in term for 20 years. I never got a new house or never asked for renovations. So if you're a councillor and you're asking for a new house, don't use your authority to push that request for a new house.
Good one. Yes, because you resided somewhere before you came here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the allocation process has been pretty, well, it's been new to a lot of us because it's our first time in. And we're trying to get a lot of the background on who the family is, not the family, I shouldn't say that, the person, what they're after. On the application, they need to tell us what they're after. They need to tell us if they're after a 2 or 3 bedroom house, the 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom. And then that has been separated by category and what's available. So we're not trying to allocate a 3 bedroom house to a 7 person family. We don't want to do that. We want to potentially save that allocation until we have those bigger houses available. We've had applications where people are only asking for those 1 and 2 bedroom houses, which we don't have those. And going into our planning for these houses we're talking about, that's where we need to plan what we're after. Based on our current list here, it's kind of put into a percentage wise. So like we have 30% are looking for 1 and 2 bedroom house, 40% are after the 3, 4 bedroom houses. The other 30% is the 5 bedroom. And it would be really nice to have 7 and 8 bedroom houses, but that's just kind of hopeful thinking. But we are trying to allocate based on their applications. The one with the counselors as well. I don't think there's really been any political influence on them getting one. I agree with you that there probably shouldn't be that process, but at the same time, you can't really hold people back. I just agree, like in some situations, they've outgrown their house. I just don't think it's fair for people to be crammed in a house as well. Their kids get bigger, they grow up, they need more space. I know with my kids right now, like they're small, and then they got bigger, and now this little small bedroom that looked big to them, now that they're bigger, it's just like they look like they're crammed in their bedrooms now. I have a 5 bedroom house, but these bedrooms are pretty small. But so it's just designing our houses, and we haven't gotten this far yet, but it's the we're gonna work on, I guess, setting a standard on what we're building and buying too. So we're not running into these problems. I know I've spoken about this with what I'm doing, like my background. I know for people that don't know, I'm a red sill plumber. And I've had the opportunity to work on 2 houses out here. I've done different houses for another nation. And my thing is I just want to like set the standard a little bit higher than what we're buying. The house I'm in right now was built years ago. There's no ventilation in the bathroom. They're like, oh, well, there's an HRV unit there. In my opinion, that's not a ventilation for the bathrooms. That's not what they're intended for. They're intended just to circulate inside, outside air to prevent stagnant air. That's all they're there for. They're not designed to ventilate moisture from bathrooms. So when I did these houses out here, I put in the bathroom fan. And then at the same time, those bathrooms are still connected to the HRV unit. So they're actually getting ventilated 2 different ways. Another one is a lot of houses that you'll have 2 return air vents, one in the common area, one in the kitchen. These houses have 8. Every single bedroom that in these 2 units that I've done, they have a return air vent in the bedrooms. For the basement, that's going to take out the cold air from, which is usually at kids' rooms. That's going to pull the cold air out of these basements. It's going to be a warmer climate for the kids. So just stuff like that, like creating that standard of what we're actually going to buy and build. We haven't like put anything down on paper yet, but those are just some of the stuff that I'm going to like speak for. That when we're going out and buying a house from somebody, they're giving us what we want. So we're not running into these issues down the road where these houses are 15, 16 years old and they're already looking like they should be condemned because they're molding up, because there's no proper ventilation. They weren't built properly or whatever the story is. So when we're getting these houses in the future, we're gonna create that better standard for our people so they actually last as well. They're not just being like forced out and they're not in a good house. Their kids aren't comfortable. Like we've all seen them. We've seen these houses out there. We've heard about them, and just for my experience and what I've came across, not only here, like other nations too, just to raise the bar on what we can do for our houses.
On, good.
And to supplement what Councillor Brandon said, is that the criteria for allocation for housing has been also one of our greatest challenges that we've had. Because we've asked several questions, because many of us are new around the table, so we come in with a very fresh lens, and we come in from a place where maybe we've owned houses before, or we've been long-term renters, or we've lived on other reserves, or or that we've lived on our own reserve, and we've looked at, okay, what was the criteria before, and what is fair and equitable criteria right now. And, right now, as we looked at that 49 people, I think that it's gotten as low as about 18 people at one time on the housing list. That number really goes up and down in terms of the people on the wait list. And when we talk about that fair and equitable, we need to hear the feedback from the committees as well as the task force and the people, because we need to make sure that we're looking at, some of the people that are on the wait list. When we're saying that in good standing, that doesn't only we're looking at that not only meaning financially, but there's many people that have had 4 or 5 shots at housing on the reserve. They've moved away, they've come back, they've moved away, they've come back, or they've left their house in disrepair. They haven't taken care of their house, they've abandoned them, and then they're back on the wait list. But because they have 3 kids, does that mean that they deserve a house more than somebody who's in good standing, who might only have 1 child, or looks after a parent, or is a single person? We're looking at all of those aspects within that, because many of the people also on the wait list are people that have had housing opportunities on reserve here several times. And so it's very, very hard to be in this position in looking at how to make that as fair and equitable as possible when we have 4,500 members, and many people also want to move home here. How do we balance all of that? And then secondly, in terms of the size of the capability of capacity of new housing, is that what was interesting is that a lot of the houses in the square footage are the same, whether they're 2 or 3 or 4 bedrooms, in terms of the amount of money that we have to spend on those houses. The bedrooms just get smaller in actuality in how that goes. And so we don't have a lot of people that the cost of the house is basically the same for if you have a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, especially with these RTMs. And you wouldn't normally think about that or think that would be the case, but it actually is the case in the costing that we have. Connie, do you have anything that you wanted to share extra with that as a staff member? Just hold on for the microphone.
So I'm not sure how many is aware, but CMHC, when we do our new Section 95, we're allocated, our MUP would be considered as $300,000. So they say we can purchase a home up to 300,000. But saying that, well, we have to take into consideration the infrastructure, right? And so really, we try and cap it off at roughly 200 to 225,000 to get a fair, decent home. And yes, I agree with Brandon, as a lot of companies, they are aware how much a nation gets. So of course, they want to sell you a home at the price that they know you're aware of, not taking into consideration that we have to do the infrastructure, we have to do the basements and all that. So that all adds up. So if we were to purchase a 300,000 home, then by the time we actually completed and ready for somebody to move in, you're looking at just about a $400,000 to $500,000 home. So that's kind of why we kind of have to go with that rough mark of 200, 225. And the chief also made comment regarding the room sizes. Yes, definitely. Average 1,200 square foot home, you're looking at maybe a 4 or 5 bedroom home. You want to put more homes, then you put a full basement. Well, you put a full basement, you need to create development. That costs extra dollars now, right? So, and then every time you want more rooms, well, your bedrooms get smaller. And next thing you know, they become a storage room. But yes.
I just want to add one more comment on that. When you're going back to the housing price, when you're given that budget of 300,000 or whatever the number is going to be, that's up to us to build a house at that price. One thing I'm kind of advocating for, and this is as a business owner as well, we're going to get more bang for our buck if our people do it on payroll. So when we're talking about our crew that's starting right now, I really have high hopes that one day they're going to go all the way through and do the houses ourselves. We're bringing this money in through these application and these grants and these all the work that our housing staff is doing. That'd be cool to see the money stay here as opposed to just money comes here, it leaves through whatever RTM contractor we pick. But I know we have a little bit of work to do. I've seen some of our local contractors struggle recently, and it was hard to watch because I've known and I've seen what they've done when I was younger. They built a lot of houses out here, and for whatever reason, our workforce isn't there. I've struggled, or I've seen them struggle, and I was along with the journey with them to get a couple of these houses done, and we need our young people to step up and take on the trades. We need carpenters again. We need electricians. Plumbing's good. We're good with the plumber. No, we need help with plumbing too. But realistically, if our people can do it, we're gonna get more for that 300,000 as opposed to going out and going off reserve and getting those houses built that way, whether it's an RTM or a mobile home or whatever it is. But we need our people to succeed in our trades to
Okay,
help build our nation.
Yes, I got to go online first. They've been waiting here for online here for a second, for a while. Aaron, he has a good idea. He says, in regard to the 50 units, he thinks that there is a housing initiative implemented to provide housing to the urban members and the elders wishing to move home. Cowessess has several employment opportunities available, and I believe a housing initiative would help recruit and retain our own professionals to bring them home. And I guess that's all it is. It's a plan. They're suggesting a plan. And let me get this straight. Are you saying you haven't got enough skilled workers to build houses? Is that it? Is that it? I'll let
There's one good carpenter, when my house flooded, Calvin Fiddler, he come and do my house, and when CMHC come and inspect it, it was just like a brand new house. He's a professional carpenter, and he's a clean carpenter. Some of the, when I got somebody to come and fix something, they didn't even come clean up their mess after. But Calvin, my house was like new down the basement, and it's still like new. I lived there 50 years, and I never had a hole in the wall.
Good. I think, I'm not sure if there's enough people like Calvin around. Hang on. Bubsy? Gary?
Yes, and hats off to Brandon there, the plumber. We can build it. We do have the people. We did it before. We closed that school. We had $1 million towards our band funded portion. So we built 22 in less than 2 years as Cowessess. And we used Cowessess people. I think we only used 2 crews that weren't from Cowessess. But we didn't have no plumbers and we didn't have electricians. But when it comes to those 22 houses, we built them with Cowessess people here. The years prior, they were struggling. They 2 years to build 2 houses. But you know, you get the background with the right people and the council behind them. Cowessess people, we can build houses again. You know, and those 50, keep the money here. Don't give it to Dennis Chuck. Don't give it to Nelson Homes or anybody. Like, we can build the houses. And yes, thank you. Hats off there, Brandon.
Okay, more training for trades. There's a couple more, I think, suggestions online. Small homes for single people. We have a lot of single people under res. Is anybody thinking of building small homes for them? Yes.
Yes, with different circumstances, and that's what we're talking about with everybody has unique and singles, different circumstances, because sometimes when you're single today, winter comes and you're no longer single, and by the next summer you have a family, you know, so so, you know, the fact is that we also have to look at what is the situation today may not be the situation in a year. And so, you know, that we're looking at, you know, how to address that issue as well. And, you know, we're very serious, you know, all joking aside, we're very serious about addressing, especially single people that may be encountering addictions and mental health issues, that may not be able to live those completely independent lives and may need support, and to have that as temporary housing, whether it's a year or 2 or 3 years, whatever needs that they have, with having a larger unit there that is there to support them as well. So very much in the same vein as a level 1 or a level 2 with seniors or people that can't live completely independent lives. We're looking at the differently abled, whatever their issue is. And to answer Aaron on the online, is that first step is put your name in for a house. Apply for that house, and your name being on the house and with the circumstances. And that's part of what we were talking about. We have this discussion all the time. Councillor Brandon is absolutely a huge proponent, and, you know, same with Councillor Ira, same with Councillor Terry, all across the board with the council, is that we are committed to building the capacity within our community to keep the money in our community, whether it's building houses, whether it's employment at the store, employment at the school, employment at the band office, in our health centers, that we want to have our own people. So we want Aaron home. Like, bottom line, we want Aaron home. And, you know, everything that we can do in order for him to bring that experience that he has, because he's considered an expert in his field. But right now, with our housing situation, we can't do much, you know. So that's another situation when we talk about the criteria and the equity of choosing, you know, putting that in the hands of our committee members, is choosing that a person who's been on the housing list for 1 year, as opposed to one that's been on the housing list for 10 years, but one that we need to fill a position. How do we make that equitable within that? We're considering all of those issues within how to bring people home and how to have that in the most fair and equitable way possible. It's very tough. It's incredibly tough. And you know what? Regardless of whatever decision is made, and regardless of whoever is chosen for that house, we know that there's going to be lateral violence associated with it. We know that we're going to hear, oh, that person doesn't belong from here, or that person only got this house because of this and that and the other thing. That's very hard on our hearts as well, to know that we're trying to do the best that we possibly can in that fair and equitable, but whatever decision that we make, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, because there's always going to be that criticism that we didn't make the right choice, and always going to be an opinion that somebody else is more deserving. Well, the fact is we're all deserving. Every single one of us is deserving, and it's very, very difficult to decide within that in how those houses are allocated. So it's just a tough situation all around, and we're trying. We're absolutely trying our best, and we're trying to do it in the most kindest, fairest way possible. But we also know that we come under incredible lateral violence in everybody's opinion, and everybody thinking and making really negative comments about that. And that's just something that we're learning how to live with, because that's just a fact. And that's why we're trying to have 50+ homes, is so that it's not like winning a lottery to get a house, because we all deserve to have a safe home. We all deserve to be able to either be in the community and get a home that suits our needs, or else move home and have a home that suits our needs in that safe and comfortable setting for our family members. And some people choose not to have children. That's their choice. But is that a reason? Should they be penalized from having a home because they have made that choice not to have a child? You know, most times those are the caregivers for adults, they're the best aunties and uncles in the world, and they're so valuable in any other way. We have to take care of them as well. We're considering all of that within it, and breaking down those old stereotypes, and trying to break down those old lateral violence types of attitudes and opinions, and to really try to break those ceilings, and to bring people home like Aaron and other people, in order to be the ones. Our people have the solutions, they have the heart, and we deserve to have that opportunity. Thank you.
And to finish up on this one, then, their priorities. They're suggesting to bring more trades programs to the nation, and also probably some home maintenance courses for minor home repairs for people willing to do it yourself. You have another question after this?
I'm pretty sure we do. Yeah, I was kind of going back, like there was one suggestion that for the allocation of houses, like, oh, we can allocate houses, just don't put the name beside it. Just give us the story and we'll go from there. But it didn't really work that way, where it ended up we needed to see the names, because there's a lot of people that know a lot of the background on who these tenants were. Like you said, there's people that come and go, whatever it is. But we did decide that way. I even made one of those wheels where everybody, you know, last one on the wheel, you get a house. He took us out of it, so it was all random. Didn't go that way either. But another one for these houses, is there any suggestions on where we're going to build sub D3? Need another place for a subdivision? No. I was joking. Nobody got allocated that way. But we have another question in the back there. And then I think Ira's next for the next question. And Chief should have just let me be quiet, because now you got me going here.
Good evening, everyone. You know, we own a lot of land around Grayson, and there's infrastructure on some of those lands. Not everybody wants to live in a subdivision. And I think we need to start building on these lands that have the infrastructure, because we're running out of space to make subdivisions. Also, have you discussed What do you do with the people who hold houses on the nation, yet don't live on the nation? They work off the nation, and yet you're holding homes. I know of 2 homes up the hill. So that's something that needs to be discussed because they're holding homes, their children aren't living there, and yet they're working off the nation. I really hope that you think about, consider building homes on our lands that we own. Because like I said, not everybody wants to live in a subdivision. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Ronaldie. That is part of our land use policy. I have sat with Alec Laurent in our lands department. He's identified some lands between the First Nation and Grayson that would be suitable for up to 10 or 20 homes. So that will be part of our plan going forward.
I'm supposed to clarify that we are trying to avoid another subdivision. We want our people to have their own spaces, potentially even having their own their family spaces again if that works too. But yeah, we're coming from experience. I'm not a fan of subdivisions myself. I'd prefer to have my own space, especially coming home. But I am appreciative that I do have a house, and I was one of the ones that sat on a housing list for quite a while before I was actually allocated. But yeah, just it would be nice to have a lot of spaces between our houses and everybody has their own area, that kind of stuff. But we're gonna avoid subdivisions as much as we can if we can. Next question.
Can also say that that run's not that funny.
Next question. Move up to the next slide. Is that it? What are the top priorities you think the nation should address in the areas of buildings and infrastructure? Buildings and infrastructure. Is that like the Cowessess arena there? That's what you're talking about? Youth center? Roads? A new hall?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're well overdue for some new infrastructure and buildings on the First Nation. For infrastructure, for me, of course, is the low pressure water to all our homes so that we all have soft water coming into our homes. It does a great deal of maintenance, preventative maintenance, I guess, in hot water heaters. Hard water doesn't do our light fix. I mean, our water fixtures any favors. We're always changing them. Soft water is the way to go. So we're working on the low pressure water. Another building for another area for infrastructure that we're looking at is fiber optic. We're hoping to have fiber optic to all our homes. Hardwired fiber optic is the way of the future. And we will be one of the First Nations in the area to do that if we do go with that proposal. That we'll be doing somebody's coming to do a presentation to us at our next meeting. So the next time we meet, we hope to have some good news in that front. But I do agree that we do need some new buildings on Cowessess, such as governance center, a new hall, a new daycare, things like that. So we're hoping to get those kicked off in short order.
Maybe if I could remind you about something, maybe not everybody knows. You know how we go home and we have the thermostat and we turn it on, most of us, and we have the natural gas coming in? Well, that was a infrastructure decision that the chief and council made when we got to TLE. And they had, everybody in Saskatchewan was getting the gasification, it was called. It's something like the 5G we're getting now. Everybody had their own turn, but everybody had, all of the communities had to make up a payment. And we used some of the first TLE monies to make a big payment. I think at the time it was about 400K. And that was a lot of money at the time. And And that was Rook that made that decision, I believe, yeah. And so that's how we got our gas. And before that, believe me, it was miserable. You had propane, you had wood, you had oil, and oil stunk really bad, and diesel. So, you know, that's a really good infrastructure development. And I think with the 5G, it's the same thing. So a lot of that stuff lasts for a long time. Anyway, I just had to say that. Did you have something to say, Debbie? Try not be long.
Just before Debbie shares, one thing that that we came across that we weren't expecting, and this is due to our executive director Melissa, as well as the staff when they met with and Connie with the ISC departments, is that we know that we don't have any space for the amount of growing that our nation has had. We haven't really had any public infrastructure development and growth for over 20 years. I think it's 25 years. And so we're busting at the seams. We are absolutely busting at the seams. But while they were addressing, or while they were with ISC, in terms of how sometimes building inspections can work for you, is that we were not being considered at all for any sort of a new governance building or band office. But because of the building inspection and the fact that now it's discovered that we're a fire hazard, the band office is a fire hazard, we've actually moved right to the top of the list, and we're looking at having a new governance center sooner than later, because ISC, now that they're aware of it, if anybody ever, like if we had a fire and somebody was harmed, they would be liable for it. So we're actually looking at a brand new administration center or governance center that we weren't expecting to. So that's good news for our nation as well. Thank you, Debbie.
I would like to make a comment, and it has to do with housing. My house was built in 1985 or 86, and I really haven't had any renovations, only flooring, and that's old. My cupboards are old and they're falling apart, and I put in a request for that long ago. And when the house was put into my name in 2010, I paid off all the what do you call it? Arrears, and I paid off my house back at that time. And since then, I got new windows, siding, and shingles. But those windows were smaller than what my house would take, and they had to build in around the windows, and there was water coming in one window on the west side of my house, and I got that fixed up. And I've been frustrated trying to ask for help for my house, and I paid it off already. And now I'm a senior. I get mad and I say, what the hell? There's some of us that lived on this reserve for a long time, and we haven't gotten help. And the house, some of the carpenters that did the work, they didn't come back and finish off some of the spots that they were supposed to finish. And the housing inspector at that time, he made a list of everything that had to be done to my house, and it was never done. And he was never called back to come and do the final inspection. So 10%, I don't know if those contractors got that, because I had to clean up their mess after and pick up all the garbage, all the stuff that they left in the yard. And still today, I'm very happy that I got a ramp. That's the newest thing on my house, was a brand new ramp. And I'm proud of that. I never expected that. It helped me a lot. And
You know, my legs are not great, but it sure helps a lot though. Like, you know, all the seniors that are getting ramps, you know, I'm happy for them. And a few weeks ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago, my house was inspected. You know, Kelsey came and he said I was first on the list. And I told all the things that were wrong with my house, how it, you know, stuff was never done and nobody come back. And I told him I was frustrated. He said, we'll make sure your house gets fixed up, because you looked all over. And sometimes my kids go home and then we're overcrowded, you know, and they ask for a house sometimes, but their wish is they want a scattered unit. They want to live either on the other side of my sister-in-law, my deceased sister-in-law, or on the other side, like in the ravines. They already picked out their spots long ago. And you know, that's what they want. They want to come home. They want to build out a house on the reserve and raise up their kids or their grandkids. Because I have great grandchildren. So that's what I have to say. You know, I don't get up and say very much, but when I do, I make sure I'm heard.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. If I think you're a little late getting here, and earlier on there's a statement issued that there is going to be 24 houses for seniors that are renovated somewhat. But you kind of hit the nail on the head here, something I said earlier on, where we should have a tenants client or someone that goes around and looks at all the houses, takes a survey of all the houses, and we should have an ongoing list of what houses need what repair. You know, and if it always has to do if are you in arrears or not, and there's got to be a lot of work done on our housing program to keep them up to date. And I'll say again, especially for our seniors, that those are the most important people on my list. To get a list, someone visiting the houses, I don't know if we have the manpower to do it now. We might have to bring in somebody that's knows what they're doing in this business to visit each and every house and put a list of priorities that the houses need. That's what I'm hearing right now with the little bit of people we got here. The houses are our issue. That's our homes. That's where people are expected to live, and seniors is the most important. We got to do more. I'm saying we got to do more to look after the houses for our seniors, for all our people, the children. It's a big issue, lots of mold issues, and it's a struggle, but we're trying hard to get a handle on it. And the good news, the one good news I could tell you is there is silver lining in the future. We are getting towards some probably good money coming up in the next, I would say 2 years. We could start addressing issues like that. As for scattered houses on the TLE lands, I don't like calling them TLE lands anymore. We can't build houses on TLE lands, but we could build houses on land that was bought through TLE, but now turned to reserve status. And you're talking about all the lands to the north around Grayson and to south towards Broadview. You know, if they're in the urban centers, turned to reserve status, we could build houses on there and give the people a little bit more room for their lives to revolve around. The kids might get them into a little bit gardening and agriculture, small animals, and it's just a holistic plan that I got in my head to help the membership of the band. If we could give them something a better lifestyle, better sustainable lifestyle with their housing. That's where I'd like to go in the long run, but I don't know how soon we'll get there, but that's the steps we'd like to take. Thank you for the questions.
Follow up here.
I just want to comment in regards to Debbie. I just want to let you know that our project manager, he is an inspector. Our goal for our housing this year is to eventually inspect every unit, and then which contains a cyclical report, and it'll go through a walkthrough completely through your house, which I know the tribal council should have been giving updates every so many years. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything like that. However, that is kind of what we're targeting, is to go to every elder's home and address the health and safety issues. So it's going to take a little bit time to get to everybody's homes. We have went to a number of homes already. There's like 70 some elders that we're going to be doing walkthroughs. We need to formulate a budget after that, and then from there we'll find the dollars to address these. But most importantly, we are getting there.
Okay, I'm going to go online here. The question was brought up twice by Esther Peterson, it looks like. Would you ever consider allowing members to bring a home to the reserve if it's approved by the band? I'm not sure what bringing a home means, but I'm assuming it might build it up.
Where's the mic?
Ira has the mic.
When we talk about a land use plan, we're also talking about the different options for houses and the housing policy. And all of that is work that we're just starting with our director of governance in terms of what barriers have been there to allow for people to move home. And that's one of them, is that there's a barrier in the housing policy to be able to bring a house home. And we're looking at how to change that within the housing policy. So that is a possibility, but we're looking at everything to make it possible for people to move home, whatever that looks like. But, Councillor Ira talked a little bit about it earlier, is that within all of this growth, we have to have the infrastructure to support that. So the water plant, the actual power and energy and all of those areas. So when we do that land use plan and people moving home, we want to make sure that when they come home, it's safe and it's everybody's able to live in that in I guess the harmony that they need to. And part of that is looking at the infrastructure of, can our water plant, our sewage system, our garbage, all of that handle that pressure. And so there's so many considerations within all of that, which is the land use policy, the housing policy, and also the amount of money that it'll take to ensure that the infrastructure is there in order for us to do it, not just mama sheesh, but in a way where everybody's able to do it.
I can just comment on the present infrastructure we have. We do have room for a little bit of growth. But I think if we're building 50 more homes, and if they're all on the First Nation, or a good portion of them are, we would do a capital application for a new water treatment plant and a sewage lift station. I think the capital project should include like a new band office in that. I think those are capital applications that we would do with our resident engineer, Ron Wozniak. So we can easily kick those off in short order and start applying. They look at the applications in the spring of each year.
Question back here. I think I seen Myra.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they're gonna hire another water person, because Ira knows how many times I run out of water. And that one time I went 4 days without water. And I said, how come you can't drive it? He didn't know how to drive it. He said, I went 4 days without water. And Eric said, I probably need a new cistern because it's chipping away, or dig up the line. It could be kinked or something, because I think they put 1,000 gallons in there. I think that's what they said. And I was out by Sunday when I got home, and Eric filled it up Thursday. Like, have a spare driver, because Eric works, like, he's a good, he's consistent Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I still run out of water. And plus another thing, when I got the cistern, I was on a well, and I wanted to keep the well, but somehow or another, I didn't get to keep the well, but it was supposed to have been decommissioned, and it's still sticking out of the ground after how many years I had a cistern. I have to put a tire around there because it's very dangerous for my grandkids because they play back there because that pipe is sticking right out of the ground. It's still there. How many times I told Ira, I want that well or taken off or something to do with it. It's still there till this day. Like, that's dangerous for my kids, my grandkids. In fact, I think Iron Lance just about ran over it because, and it would have been my responsibility because I hired Iron Lance to come and cut my grass. If he would have ran over that thing, would have buggered his machine. But I'd like to get that cistern looked after because he said it's chipping away and that's what probably blocked it up unless there's a kink. And they said, well, it'll be too expensive to dig the line out. Well, you run to the hills and try and go to the bathroom 4 o'clock at night, you know? And how many times, Ira knows how many times I ran out of water. I phone him. I'm out of water again, 3 days after. Right now it's being good. I went kind of low, but then I had water. I said, don't use any more water. I said, I don't know where it's leaking or what. They told me they were going to dig out the line to see if there's a kink or something or cracked. I don't know. And I know they said it shouldn't freeze up because it's so deep in the ground.
Yeah.
I'd like that to be looked after this year at least.
Okay, thank you for those concerns, Myra. I know that the well decommissioning, we're looking for somebody to do that. We did a few wells on Cowessess. We decommissioned them, but the product to decommission them is kind of hard to find. But we may be calling in a contractor to decommission the well. But your concern about the cistern and that is also my concern, and that's the need for this low pressure for all our homes. We shouldn't have to rely on a tank of water. We should have a constant flow of water. And that's why I'm advocating for low pressure for our First Nation as soon as possible. I was kind of disappointed when I called the engineer yesterday to find out where we were in the application process. Apparently, he won't have an answer for me for another 3 months. So it's a long process to get the thing into all our homes, and it comes with a price tag of approximately $8 to $9 million. But I mean, that's not the sticking point. The sticking point is to get the feasibility and the contractors to come in and do that work for us. So once we get the feasibility study done, engineers will come in and design the system for us. And even in that process, the uplands, whether that can sustain or we need to make some bigger reservoirs at the uplands, because we'll be supplying a lot more water to all the homes up here now. I mean, up the hill. So yeah, no, those concerns, and I thank you for those, because we need to hear that, right? So council needs to hear that, how important low pressure is for us. Because if all our homes that are on cisterns right now are on a boil water advisory, that's how Health Canada has them. They can't guarantee the quality of water in that cistern, so it's just under a permanent boil water advisory. So I know the federal government always talks about lifting boil water advisories on First Nations, but unless you put low pressure in, it's not going to happen on Cowessess.
Like how many times I have to take off my tap because it's barely dripping, like there's no water coming. I take off that little screen, it's all full of garbage. Even fur, maybe a mouse fell in there, we don't know. I took a picture of it and I brought it to the house. I said, look what's in my tap. And now my bathroom, because I bought a new tap, I can't take it off. I can't take that screen off. So I have to try and get a new tap because I can't take the screen off because it's barely dripping inside the tap. So it must be full of garbage. I took pictures of that. I took it to the band office to health.
Yeah, no, I remember that, Myra.
Because they never cleaned the cisterns.
Yes.
Murray DeLorme was the last one to clean that.
I have found a contractor that cleans cisterns now. We did Myrna's last week. You'll be on the list as well.
Yeah, because like it's close to the trees there.
Thanks.
I don't know what the fur was in there.
Thanks for that comment.
Okay, remember online, make sure send Corey your name if you're late signing in. Did you have a question? Go ahead.
Not a question, it's a comment. We have some families I've noticed since I've moved back home, and to me, it's musical houses. And it's sad because they abandon their house. They leave their house dirty and wrecked. and then they come back and they get another house. I think it's time that we say, hey, after 4 years, apply for a house. Because they don't take into consideration the cost to clean it, to repair the house. We have to be serious about that because I see it happen too often. Like I call it musical houses. And it seems to be some families that just do it over and over. Another one I wanted to mention too, like if you're looking at, we talk about food security and whatnot. Our subdivisions, you can't have animals there. Cattle, horses, chickens, pigs. Well, how are we going to help people if they want to get into that, like into chickens and cattle, when we're putting them in subdivisions? So that's something we need to look at when we start building off the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Yeah, those are the kind of comments we need to hear. And thanks for that.
Looks like we're at the end of our questions. Could I bring up one? What about the garbage? Can you fix up the garbage? It's kind of like gross.
You're talking the garbage collection, you're talking the garbage landfill? The landfill? I can give you an update on that. This year will be the last year that we'll be using that landfill. By the fall of this year, that landfill will be decommissioned and all of our solid waste will be removed from the First Nation to a engineered transfer station just off the reserve towards Broadview. That's in the planning stage now. They should be out. I think they're coming out on May 1st or something like that to get started on it. So they tell me there's a 3 or 4 month construction period. So I'm hoping by the fall that we're using it. It'll be a manned transfer station. So there'll be somebody there, an attendant there all the time. It'll be gated, it'll be light, it'll be cameraed. It'll be like, I want to call state-of-the-art transfer station for our solid waste.
Okay, good enough for me. Bubsy has one, Gary, and then Roberta.
The transfer station, like being the contractor with truckloads of garbage of all kinds. What do I do with it?
We've thought of that, Bubsy, and when you do a contract for the housing department, we've let the housing department know already that there has to be a disposal fee in that contract. And that disposal fee will pay for the bins that you have to come and take your shingles, construction material, or whatever to. There's a cost to remove that, right? So somebody's got to pay that. So that burden goes onto the housing department in their renovations.
Okay, up my prices.
Up your prices, yes.
Roberta had one. Okay, she had the same question. Anybody else? It looks like you've answered all the questions.